Welcome, everyone. My name is Cecile Coronato. I'm with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, one of the proud sponsors of today's event, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you our panel of esteemed experts on keeping New Jersey safe from cybersecurity threats. Our first panelist is Michael Geraghty. Mike is the state of New Jersey's Chief Information Security Officer and Director of the New Jersey Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Cell. In these roles, Director Geraghty is responsible for the development and execution of the state's cybersecurity strategy and has direct responsibility for all aspects of statewide cybersecurity operations. Mike began his career with the New Jersey State Police, where he served 12 years and led the formation of its High Technology Crimes Investigation Unit. From there, Mike went on to become an accomplished cybersecurity executive and has worked in both private and public sector enterprises. Next up is Christopher Rein. Chris is the Chief Technology Officer for the state of New Jersey. In this position, he leads the state's Office of Information Technology, a 700-person team charged with operating the technology infrastructure for the executive branch. Mr. Ryan was the former Deputy Director of the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Cell and Deputy Chief Information Security Officer. His background also includes over 40 years of both public and private sector positions. And finally, we have Lieutenant Enrique Bryan. Lieutenant Bryan is a 23-year enlisted member of the New Jersey State Police and is currently the Assistant Bureau Chief of the High Tech Crime Bureau, which houses a number of units, including cyber crimes, electronic surveillance, missing persons and human trafficking, and also houses the Regional Computer Forensics Laboratory Unit. Lieutenant Bryan also has 15 years of investigative experience, where he supervised the cyber crimes unit and had prior stints in the auto unit and the missing persons and trafficking unit. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our first panelist, Mike Geraghty. Mike, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. So welcome, everybody, and I'm glad you can join me and the team here. Thanks to Seton Hall, the EDA, and all the sponsors for having us. This is timely. It is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. As Cecile mentioned, I'm the State's Chief Information Security Officer responsible for cybersecurity and the Director of the NJEDA, and so our job is to make everybody and everything in New Jersey safe. Not such a small task, but it's a task that I relish and love the job. And I think, we're talking about careers here, and I'm going to start right off in the Hoover app. You're going to see some postings for positions at the NJEDA. So if we do a good impression on you and through the session, hopefully you can apply to join our team.
Great. Let me turn it over to Chris Ryan.
Thank you, Cecile. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our discussion. I found it interesting. I was able to attend part of the prior session this morning, and I found it interesting that really that first session began with an academic focus. So we've heard from several universities. I know there were some speakers from Rutgers. I graduated with a degree in computer science from Rutgers, so it was nice to see some alum there. But really, I think what's more striking is having the three of us, Enrique, Mike, and I, follow that session is kind of fitting, because if everything we see in the world today is supply chain. We got, ships off of the docks, we have trucking slowdowns, we have labor slowdowns and so forth. And really, it's affecting the supply chain tremendously. Well, here we are this morning spending a few minutes with, and I think supply chain is great. All of us, I know that Enrique would tell you this, I know that Mike would tell you this, and I certainly would tell you that getting, retaining, attracting talent for each of our missions, whether it's infrastructure, technology support, cybersecurity support, or investigative support, talent is our most precious, and that's not a byline. That's not an exaggeration. We have lots of tools and lots of cool technologies and very interesting policies, procedures, but without talent, we're sunk. And so it's our hope that maybe some of our messaging can really interest some of the folks listening to a career that at least has part of that career as public service. We know that folks move around, but you'll find it quite rewarding. And I know that, speaking as about half of my career has been in public sector and half in private sector, I can certainly say that's true. It's been quite rewarding, challenging and difficult, but quite rewarding to have the public sector. So I look forward to sharing some of these ideas with you. It's also fitting, my parting comment is, so Mike and I each have two very different organizations, and the fact that I'm following Mike is also fitting because that's the way it is in work as well. Mike sets the direction, the policy, the guidance, the technologies, the warnings, and the flags. And as part of my job as infrastructure guy is I have to follow them and abide by them and be alerted by them. So I look forward to being able to share some of what we've learned and some of what we can offer with you today. Thanks, Cecile.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. Enrique?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Enrique Bryan. I'm the lieutenant and the assistant bureau chief for the high-tech crime bureau with the New Jersey State Police. Again, I got 23 years in the job. And again, my position here on this panel, it's a little bit different, obviously. You have to become an enlisted member of the New Jersey State Police to become a detective in some of these units. And our primary responsibility is obviously attribution and investigation. But obviously, as Chris was saying, we work directly with Director Geraghty and the NJEDA and Director Rein over at NJEDA also, as far as what we do as far as trying to secure the infrastructure, the cyber infrastructure in New Jersey. That being said, there are also a lot of civilian career paths here in New Jersey State Police and different units, from ITB, Information Technology Bureau, to the New Jersey Regional Operations Intelligence Center that have a lot of investigator positions and analyst positions. So there are career paths for civilians also, but obviously for those that are looking to get into law enforcement technology, this is a path that I took, and I have some information on that. Hopefully we'll share some of that later on in the panel. But again, thank you for having me, and to represent the state police on this panel. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you to all of you for being here today. And to the audience members, feel free to insert questions you may have into the chat, and we can try to get some of those to our panelists. Right now, let's start off with a basic foundation question I would ask of each of you is what are some of the top skills you look for in a job candidate, especially someone just starting off? Mike, you?
Character.
Character.
It starts with character. So you need that foundation. And when I say character, what I mean is personal integrity. You can't be in cybersecurity and not be a trustworthy person. You've got to have accountability and responsibility to show up for the job on time and do the work, be able to work as a team, be able to lead when you're asked to lead, have that lifelong passion for learning. All of those things that are characteristics of your character or part of your character is the foundation on which the skills, the technical skills, the cybersecurity skills are going to be built on. So you can have all the skills in the world, but if you don't have that character, you're not going to fit in a team, and you're not going to be successful in any type of an organization. We see that in sports a lot, where you've got somebody who's very, very talented, all sorts of skills, but he doesn't mesh with the team because he doesn't have that, character that's necessary. Same thing exists in the public and private sectors, whether it's sports or, in cybersecurity. So I would start with character.
Hi, Cecile. If I'd comment, given that Mike's domain is cybersecurity, there's definitely a select set of training and background and specific skills that are related to cybersecurity. And I love the fact that Mike realistically brushed them aside and talked about character. Similarly, and I would answer a little bit differently because in the Chief Technology Officer role, I have responsibility for all of the infrastructure in all the executive branch. That means our data centers, that's the physical plant. That means our cloud operating environments. That means our Garden State network. We have a very large state secure network. Now, Mike would probably bust my chops and say secure, huh? But we work together on that. But we have the state secure intranet, and we have a large managed hosting team, some 4,000, 5,000 servers that we have both on-prem and in the cloud. We have mainframe processing. So for me, it's a diverse set of skills. So from a technical perspective, it's very, very diverse. But then I'm going to piggyback a little bit and say the dedication and tenacity, just, not, if you can find a person who has a reputation or a demonstrated capability of staying with a problem and bird dogging it and being persistent, that's super high priority for me. I'll also say that interesting, when I came into this job, one of the positions that I filled was my chief operating officer. Now you think about chief operating officer, that's the guy or the gal who's going to be in charge of mainframes and servers and operating systems and network and firewall infrastructure, mass storage, all of that. I hired an attorney. I hired a lawyer, and he was a tremendous addition to our team. He happened to be an attorney that had familiarity, a lot of familiarity with contracting, state contracting, and how they work. Well, as we'll probably talk about throughout this talk today, contracting is part now of something we have to look at very hard to increase our security posture, to be more demanding on our vendors, and thus lower the state's cyber risk. So again, persistence, tenacity are number one and number 1A for me. Thanks.
Wonderful. Enrique?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So from this agency, obviously, we have a lot of type A personalities. You have to be very confident and motivated, hardworking. So with whether it's the enlisted personnel or civilians that work in the agency, that's what we pretty much look for. Obviously, the confidence, because a lot of people don't have the confidence to go into this field. Probably our audience today are probably going towards that direction anyway. But in an agency like the state police, you have a lot of people that don't have the technology background, and it's hard to identify people that want to have the aptitude to try and learn and to get into the technology side of it, especially in investigations and those kinds of things. So again, in my opinion, again, confidence and motivation, that's what we always look for in candidates, whether it's enlisted personnel or civilians, to try and do this job. So.
Great, thank you. And I want to get back to something Mike had mentioned about a lifelong passion for learning. I imagine that this field requires that you are a lifelong learner, as it's constantly evolving and changing. And so, what do you recommend? Do your agencies provide opportunities for continued learning, professional development? What are your recommendations in that regard?
That is a big part of what the NJ Kick does. We have to develop our staff. Once we get them, they can't just stay stagnant. And it's not only developing our staff, it's developing, Enrique's staff and providing opportunities to Chris's staff. Last week, we held a cloud security class for 6 days. And with tests and all sorts of things. We do this not only within state government, but we also offer it to public sector organizations, municipalities, counties. We do it for school districts. We do it for universities. Last year, we did the Capture the Flag partnership with NJEDA to provide students with that ability. Training is so important, that real world training on how to get it, and developing people and continuously developing. And obviously, it's not just the organization that has to have that mindset. It's also the individuals, that lifelong learning, that passion to continue to improve themselves.
Let me bring it up to a higher level, and just I'm curious as to what are how does New Jersey compare to other states in terms of our infrastructure and our capabilities and our capacities, and has there been an evolution over the last 5-10 years? What are your thoughts on that?
If I could maybe take the first to take the first cut at that, Cecile. So I've had the opportunity, and it's been a blessing. It's been a challenge, but it's been a definite blessing of having several different intersection points with the state of New Jersey. I worked for the state police back in 2000, 2007, in that time frame. And then I was in the private sector. I also worked for Director Geraghty as within the NJEDA for a year or so before becoming the Chief Technology Officer. When I was a vendor, I worked for a company that was a New Jersey company, and we developed software, and some of our customers were some of our state's agencies. So I think, maybe it's a little bit of a unique perspective that I can look at where we are from a couple different perspectives tactically. I can say for sure that even as recently as maybe I think Mike has been here for 5.5 years, and there has been such a marked change. Mike's not paying me for this. There's been a marked change in the past 5 years in terms of the focus, the structure. Mike, the cybersecurity function used to be just rolled up as one of the many, many functions that lied with OIT. Now that's not the case. Now the state very, very smartly separated the cyber function, and we have that as a separate organization under Homeland Security. So Mike does not report to me. I don't report to Mike. It's independent authorities, which is terrific. Anybody who has had experience in the software development industry, would certainly attest that you never want to have the QA organization reporting to the same director or VP that develops the software, him or herself, right? They have conflicting interests. These folks want to find the bugs. These folks want to sell product. So, in a similar way, Mike and I have very, very differing roles. And I will say it, over the past 5 years, I can cite a number of different products that we have improved the security posture better than the 15 or 20 years prior to that. Maybe that's a sign of the times. Maybe that's part Mike and my partnership. Maybe that's just a great heightened focus, even at the cabinet and the governor's level, because Mike briefs the cabinet directly. Mike briefs the governor directly. And so I think some of those factors all come together. It's not perfect, and we've got a long road ahead, of course, but we've really, I think, decreased our attack surface in a number of areas, and I think we've improved our security posture. As anybody in this business can tell you, today is only the beginning, and it's only going to be tougher down the road.
What keeps you guys up at night? What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing right now, or that you think is coming down the road? Who'd like to take that one first? Enrique?
Well, I would say that we would definitely move over to Director Geraghty, because that's what their primary function is as far as the different threats that the state is facing in cybersecurity. But obviously, in the New Jersey State Police side, as far as us investigating these crimes, it has become very challenging. Encryption and going dark, and some of these new technologies that make it very difficult to be able to catch people on the web when they commit crimes have made it very difficult for us. But that's what really keeps us up at night, because it's sometimes very difficult to try and find attribution when someone is using a VPN or some sort of dark web or something like that. So, but again, as far as the posture for the state, I think Director Geraghty could probably expand better.
Well, if you ask me that question, nothing keeps me up at night, because I'm so darn exhausted at the end of the day that I pass out. But it's great. And one of the great things about cybersecurity is when I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's a brand new day, and I want to go to work like it's the first day on the job, and that enthusiasm. But at the end of the day, I feel like I went 15 rounds with Mike Tyson. That's what cybersecurity is, and every day is different. Yesterday, we were triaging some major incidents, not within the state network, but we provide help to private and public sector organizations when they get attacked, and so those are the things that really drive me. And we're talking about public sector organizations now, and there's lots of reasons to go into cybersecurity, and some of the selling points is you hear you can make a lot of money. Yeah, you can, some places, but the real reason that drives me is to help somebody. At the end of the day, if you can help somebody make their system more resilient, prevent an attack on their network, or do something, you get to go home and feel good, and you can sleep really well at night. So that's the drive, and that's what drives me to be in this role.
I would say from my perspective is, other than the fact that, what keeps me up at night, my dog's a bit of a snorer. So, that aside, what I really kind of lose sleep over sometimes is the fact of we operate here within a government environment, right? We have a government enterprise that all of us operate within. That's serving the state of New Jersey. It's serving the citizens and residents of New Jersey. Just to know that you have to be vigilant, you have to work hard, you have to bring in the right technologies and people. But the fact that no matter what we do, we can't pivot as fast as the bad actors do. We just can't. And that disparity will always be a challenge for anyone in our field, right? So if you look at perhaps Enrique with the high-tech crimes and the cyber crimes area of state police, right? Think how difficult it is to prosecute, investigate, and prosecute the forensics, the legal aspects. It's so difficult to deal with even what I'll call regular crime. That's challenging enough day in, day out. Now we have cyber type crimes, which the technology is certainly outpacing their ability to change their SOPs, to change their training regimens and so forth. So, I'm certainly looking forward to Enrique's answer, but I would imagine that's part of it. And therefore, as a follow-on entity in the state, that's part of what keeps me up as well.
Yeah, I agree with Chris, because definitely you have to be very flexible, because everything changes. The technology changes, and so do the laws. And that's what we're governed in investigations. We have to follow criminal procedures and search and seizure and those kinds of things. So it becomes very difficult, again, to investigate crimes on the web, because it's really the Wild West. A lot of times it's very difficult to get any way to try and figure something out when somebody's using certain technologies. At the same time, we have to stay within the framework of what we are taught here, what the rules are. So yes, like Chris said, it does get very challenging a lot of times to be able to solve these crimes. And again, just like Director Geraghty mentioned, the ongoing training, we have detectives here that we have a training matrix that new detectives go through from the bottom up. Some units are more advanced, like the Regional Computer Forensics Lab is a task force that's run by the FBI and the state police, and they have a very advanced training regimen. Here in cybercrimes, we're like the specialists in every kind of investigation you could think of. So we get a little bit of both, more advanced training, but also we need to be very skilled at the investigative side. We have another unit, which is Internet Crimes Against Children's unit, which again, they specifically focus on those types of crimes. And again, they're more investigative. So yes, it's just a learning experience every day, because something new comes up every day. And the good thing is we have motivated people that constantly are learning and know the environment in order to be able to, again, be in this realm. So.
What are some of more non-traditional career paths you've seen come through your organizations? Somebody that didn't have necessarily an IT background to start off with. If you could share any thoughts on that and what you think would be valuable.
So I'll start. Cybersecurity is a big field. It's not just about pen testing, no matter what all these universities are telling their people. There are lots of things involved in it. We need to communicate out to an audience that consists of lay people. They're not necessarily cybersecurity experts. So communications and social media analysts and those types of roles, people coming in as liberal arts majors. It really doesn't matter what your background is to me, whether it is in cybersecurity. In fact, I would, God, I'm heresy here. I'd rather you have something that is different, because we can teach you cybersecurity here. That's not hard. I can't teach you some of these other skills. I can't teach you how to manage Active Directory, but if you come in with that capability, wow, we can apply that to cybersecurity. And every organization in New Jersey uses Active Directory to manage assets and individuals on their networks and stuff like that. So there's lots of different schools, graphic artists, things of that nature. Again, that communications function is so important for this whole field of cybersecurity. GIS, we've got data scientists, we've got all sorts of these things. Then obviously there's the programmers and the IT professionals and stuff like that. But what makes us great is not only that diversity of skills and backgrounds, of jobs and those types of education, but it's also the diversity and backgrounds of the individuals, whether it's race or gender or any of those things, where you grew up, how you grew up. All those things provide us different perspectives that we can all mold together and have a common, NJ kick focus to be able to solve just about any problem.
If I could just maybe jump in as well. So earlier, a few moments ago, I kind of mentioned that, it may seem a little bit uncharacteristic or non-traditional that chief operating officer responsible for many of these areas, very technical areas, technical discussions. It was in fact an attorney, and we have several other folks that within OIT that are also attorneys. Now we have privacy laws, privacy policies. We have to be compliant with some, executive orders from the governor's office. So that also makes sense with the legal and the contractual training, and also some of our procurement team. That makes sense. A couple of other noteworthy ones that I find kind of interesting is one of our really senior folks in the state, technology. His prior job, he spent several years as a bouncer in a bar, not kidding. Sometimes we need to use those skills or call upon them when we have some really tough issues. But and we also Mike also touched on, I have a team within OIT that does a lot of graphic design, state websites, state publications, and so forth. Those skills are quite portable and quite applicable in many places. And lastly, one of the lead folks that are on our firewall technology team has a background in the management of some of our state's unions and some of our labor relations folks areas. So it really is diversity. I know Governor Murphy really speaks quite a bit, and he talks about how powerful and how valuable our state's diversity is in so many areas, geographically, age, ethnicity, skill sets, and that really is what one of the things that I consider to be very interesting and a blessing, at least in my role here in the Office of Information Technology.
I would also like to jump in on this. In my, I guess, 15 years in investigations and about 7-8 years here in cyber, I've only seen one detective that had a computer science degree. So when we were talking about diversity, especially in this agency for enlisted personnel, again, it's challenging trying to identify troopers that can become proficient detectives in cyber. However, we can teach those skills. And it is also good to have a diverse background, because you bring different parts of their experience to cyber. And then again, a lot of these things they can learn. They can learn a lot of these classes. It's just, again, you just got to get past that hesitance that I think people get a little bit intimidated by the cyber field, and they're a little hesitant to go into it. So yeah, you're correct. It's again, in state police, and even a lot of the civilian positions, they actually start out in different parts of the state police and different units and different titles, and then actually go into other like information technology specialists and these kinds of roles in the state police. So it's almost like a lot of people just, I'm saying, maybe 75% of the people come in without that kind of experience. Because again, I think a lot of people try and go towards the private sector, like we were saying, they're going to make more money there, but this is a more rewarding career. So.
Hey, Cecile, I just want to, add to the conversation here. So I have a job, CISO and the NJ Kick director, that didn't exist when I was in college, okay? So there was no career field in cybersecurity back then. For everybody that is still going through college and university, there are going to be job opportunities when you graduate that didn't exist, that don't exist today. There'll be new technologies. There'll be all these different things. In fact, and Enrique can attest to this, cybercrime or computer crime wasn't even on the state police roadmap for so long. And so those careers didn't exist. So always look to the future, and where I say that character works and that continuous learning. If you're just stuck in that one lane of traffic, you're not going to see everything that you need to see and take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there.
That's great. I think, I think that the message is loud and clear to breadth of experience and skill set is definitely an asset. So don't paint yourself into a corner necessarily. It's good to get those sort of broader perspective on the issues. Talking about challenges, the last year and a half, 2 years of this pandemic, we saw this huge mass exodus of people from the office, and now everybody's working remotely. How did that affect your jobs? Did you find it increased the challenges? It amplified current challenges? Did you see new opportunities arise there? How did it affect your jobs, your roles?
Cecilia, I can maybe comment. So clearly, I think everyone, no doubt, on the session today, on the event, would agree that across almost every industry, some type of remote something became, kind of paramount for everybody. State employees, we have somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 state IT employees, right? All of the IT team had to start working remotely. In some cases, we had tools and technologies and given products that allowed us to remote access in one form or another. But for the most part, just the way the state operates, the way our civil service operates, the way we've kind of structured things prior to the pandemic was largely on-prem, on-site, almost all the time. When that shifted overnight, right, it literally, through an order of magnitude, change requirement on us. I know that the amount of dollars spent, the amount of products spent, the amount of remote access methodologies that we had to implement, and as you'd imagine, New Jersey State Police was a big partner and a customer in that regard. Mike Geraghty and the NJ Kick, every product that we had to purchase, we had to get their security assessments. Is this legitimate, and so forth? And we still ended up with a somewhat of a heterogeneous collection of access methods that we're trying to pare down. We've gotten it pared down a certain percent. We're going to try to eliminate one or two more products, because from our perspective, the less products in a given space that you have to support, the easier it is for you to keep trained, fresh staff knowledgeable about those products, as opposed to if we have one of every product on the market, it's so difficult to try to keep those products supported and secure. So from a remote access perspective, that's been number one for me. All of the technologies that we had, Mike would certainly lament about this. He may even comment about it, but right, everything that we had in the way of security, firewalls, VPNs, anti-malware, email protections, they all protected the state buildings. They all protected the state networks. Well, we're not working like that anymore. I'm speaking of when the pandemic hit. So that's a huge shift to say, protect the people, protect the traffic, and don't protect our on-prem networks. So that was a big shift for us And I know that working with the other two individuals on the call was part of an important partnership.
I could probably jump in also, and obviously during the pandemic, the New Jersey State Police obviously is a 24/7 agency, so we're constantly working. So it was somewhat of a challenge to work in the pandemic, especially in these investigative units. You have all the uniformed personnel that are out there interacting with people. So obviously that's the different aspect. But for us in investigations, I mean, the cybercrime has just completely exploded, where everybody's doing everything online, and we're getting crimes that weren't as prevalent as it was before. Like, for example, the whole Zoom bombing, when somebody would go in and disrupt a conference call or a video call. We're getting a lot of those, and just in general, just crimes that are just that we weren't seeing to the level that we're seeing now. Obviously, we're somewhat coming out of the pandemic now, so it's kind of leveling off. But again, it has become a challenge because it's just everybody was home working remotely online, and there's just more and more chances for there to be cybercrime because that's how people were interacting. So that was our experience.
Great. Well, so we're getting down to, we got about 15 minutes left, and I'd like to open it up to the broader group. If folks have questions, I don't know if I'm seeing all the chat questions. Because I think a few came in earlier that I'm not seeing. Any of our Seton Hall folks on the line here? Chris?
So yes, you should have access to all of the chat. The first question that were posed, Lisa Martinelli should be the first one you should see at 11:04. She had put a few questions that were in there. I don't know if you see that or not.
I do not see that. If
Okay.
you could,
I'm gonna bump those up to the top here. This was the first here.
Okay, so first question, what are the symptoms or diagnosis of cyber, I don't know if this is cyber V or cyber 5 generation attacks? How can we prevent it? Also, how to build advanced tools and solutions in order to develop a personal platform for cyber protection. Anyone have any thoughts on that? And if you're able to read the chat, it might be easier for you to answer that.
So Lisa, can you provide a little bit more insight into what Cyber 5 generation attacks are? I'm not sure I understand. I've never heard that term.
Actually, that was a question that was posted to the Hoover app, so I just cut and pasted it in there. So if the person that's referenced there is not on the session, I wouldn't be able to provide anything else.
Okay, yeah. I'll take the second part of that. How to build advanced tools. Forget about the advanced tools. Develop the personal habits, and we talk about cyber hygiene, and we talk about personal hygiene during COVID. Washing your hands to prevent germs from getting on you, and brushing your teeth to prevent tooth decay, and all those different things. So good habits. So we talk about strong passwords. One of the most prevalent attacks that we see, or prevalent issues we see, is that people use the same password across multiple online systems. They use weak passwords. Those passwords have been compromised, and as a result, their accounts are compromised. I can't tell you how many of these issues that we see. It's in the thousands, and so strong passwords, using multi-factor authentication, making sure your system is updated with the latest patches, making sure that your antivirus is running and operational, things of that nature, having good backups that you've tested. All of those little things are simple to do. Personal hygiene, don't click on links or open attachments from senders of email or text messages that you don't know, or just leave you with a fuzzy feeling and stuff. So those are the things. If we can take care of that, all those advanced tools and solutions will take care of themselves down the line. But we've got to start with the fundamentals.
Yeah, I would also add, along with Mike's commentary. So within the state, we obviously, to operate the state, we certainly rely on and partner with the vendor community. And the vendor community comes up with, no doubt, new technologies frequently. They can provide technologies that are either in the cloud or on premise. They could be physical technologies, or they could be software technologies, detection, prevention, and a lot of these really become kind of modern, really cool tools. But without the culture change that kind of gets to maybe what Mike was saying, without the culture that says this is important all the time, every day, then the tools are just kind of like an adjunct part of your job. Now, I know that a lot of the folks that are probably listening really are interested in technology, and that's great, because we have computer science, we have software development, we have electrical engineering, we have all of these folks that are really interested in the technological part. So none of what we're saying is basically meant to imply that that's not important. It most certainly is, but to have those technologies available to you and know how to use them, that's key. But to also be part of a culture change where we have, a state workforce that grew up in the 1990s and 80s and early 2000s, where security wasn't either as important as it is, or even mentioned in some pockets. So changing that culture, changing the behaviors is absolutely equally as important, sometimes more important than the technology tools. But if you bring in somebody that knows Cisco routing technologies, server, Windows operating system configuration items, a lot of these vendor products have the capability to be extremely secure. But we, the customers, often don't configure them that way. We don't take advantage of the security measures and the tight security configuration settings. So that's all part of it as well. So certainly those skills that are at the fundamental level are very essential, certainly in my world, and I would assume that's probably across the board.
And maybe it's a skill that we should be teaching sort of across the board, basic. Now that we live our lives online, we should be taking more personal responsibility for our security. Here's a good question. How would you rate the awareness of New Jersey government workers, and what is your most successful method of educating them?
Daily beatings. No, so we do a lot in the way of security awareness. Obviously, one of the missions for the NJKIC is to provide that awareness and information sharing about threat intelligence, whether it's state government workers or outside. But internally, we also have requirements for annual training. We have a monthly bulletin. We're always putting out alerts, advisories, those types of things. That being said, generic training and generic messaging doesn't necessarily work with any adult. So adult learning theory, Maslow, and if you go into that, you have to understand that an adult is only going to retain what's pertinent to that individual, what's going to allow his job to do it better, what's going to protect him. So what we try and do is make it more personal. I mentioned multi-factor authentication before. So we have a website, obviously, that allows employees to log in and see, and do beneficiary and HR information. It provides the opportunity and the option to implement multi-factor authentication. So not just saying, apply it, but showing them that what happens when you don't, you can lose all sorts of money, and giving real world, lessons like that. And that's when it's going to resonate with them. And that's when they're going to say, oh, now this makes sense, rather than the generic, don't click on links and don't open attachments.
That's great. We have another question here. As part of the Rutgers CERT team, I've responded to website defacement and password compromise reports that was reported by the NJKIC. What other security issues does the state see most frequently?
Mike, from an operational perspective, I can say that what other security areas of concern, are, the ability with such a broad, kind of and diverse set of platforms. We have, operating systems that cross a number of years, a number of generations. Keeping those updated, keeping those patched is so important. I think that we're better at it now than we were certainly any number of months ago. We've really worked hard at instilling better measurements, better dashboarding, that higher level management who have the accountability for these things. It's now front and center. It's now put right in their faces. We track the ability to, or we track the activation of multi-factor authentication on personal accounts. We've just really gone through a big campaign of upgrading that across all of our state agencies. So the lack of multi-factor authentication, it sounds, it kind of sounds mundane, but that really is that really represents to me what some of the exposed attack surfaces that our own citizens or our own users sometimes fail to take advantage of. So messaging is and training on how important that is and how effective that is are also two very important aspects from an operational perspective.
Great. We got to follow up on our Cyber 5 question. Cyber 5 and Cyber 6 attacks are modern multi-vector attacks that attempt to exploit vulnerability in a device or app to gain access to other devices or programs up or downstream to create more damage. So it takes advantage of the interconnectivity of our virtual environment. Internet of Things devices tend to be extremely vulnerable to these attacks, as is large-scale government-sponsored tech that has been leaked. So any response to that? How are we dealing with that?
Enrique, you can take that one.
No, I think that's more of your wheelhouse there, Director Geraghty, because all we just do is the investigations, but you guys are the ones that are keeping everybody safe. So,
all right. So let me throw this out there, and so we the terms that are used, Cyber 5 and Cyber 6, we don't use those here in the NJ Kick, but I will attack it this way. The NJ Kick is here at the Regional Operations Intelligence Center. So you've got Chris Ryan, the CTO of the state. We have his security engineers that are working within our environment. We've got 2 detectives from the state police. We work together. Down the hall is the FBI and the USDHS and TSA, and we have the Office of Emergency Management right here in the building. We all work together in a fusion center capacity. And our mantra is all threats, all hazards, all the time. So it doesn't matter if we term it as a Cyber 5 or a Cyber 6. One of the big things that we're talking about today is the convergence of the cyber and the physical. Everything today is being networked. And one of the things that we talked about is as we went remote is more and more people are online. There's a bigger attack surface. The Internet of Things, the Internet of Medical Things, the Internet of intelligent traffic systems, and we see everything connected. And you stop at a traffic light, you can see all sorts of cameras and other wireless devices that are out there that keep traffic flowing. There's autonomous vehicles coming online and vehicles that are talking to one another. So lots of things there that this is why cybersecurity was organized under the Office of Information Security a few years ago, because it's not just an IT thing. It is an entire security ecosystem with all those threats, all those hazards, all the time that are out there. As Enrique says, it's 24/7. You can attack something anywhere in the world. So time and distance are meaningless when it comes to cyber, because your adversaries are halfway around the world operating in different time zones.
I remember, Cecile, just a real quick closing add-on. So when we were talking about kind of preparing for this, this event, I know we talked about, and some of the questions are kind of getting to this. We talk about smart cities. Everything is IoT. We have the ability for lateral movement. We have the ability for, bad actors to have so many more vectors, and even when we look at state government, right? All of the state agencies, we have the Department of Agriculture, we have the Department of Health, we have the state police, we have the Department of Labor. We have all these silos. The state is actually moving from this, right, to more connected. We should not present to the citizens of New Jersey, the residents of New Jersey, a bunch of silos. So right now we have this view of all being connected. But what does that mean? Well, everything connected has a weak link, and that's what keeps us up. That's really what keeps us focused on, hey, how do we worry? How do we protect the totality of New Jersey from a cyber perspective, and not just agency A, agency B, agency C? So that would be my closing mark. Just like there's smart cities, we're trying to also have a smart government, and the unfortunate part that is sometimes that makes some greater cyber risk that keeps Enrique and Mike and I, kind of focused that night of what's coming ahead and what's next. So just wanted to share that thought because I thought I had some contextual relevance there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for your talk today and engaging with us on these issues. And hopefully we've piqued some interest, and people can head over to the Whova app and look at some of these job postings and internship opportunities. And enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.